Hold on.
Welcome to Monarchist Minute Royalist News and Discussions out of the good old US of A. I'm Charles York. Joining me today is our new guest, Basil the Based, Krieger, Charles York, and of course, Victor Smith. Today we are going to be talking about a litany of topics, but first I will start Victor Smith off on the topic he proposed, which is New York and why we should blame Canada.
Well, you gave the game away, Trad, when you introduced Charles York as Charles York.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The
Either way.
wildfires will do that to you. The
Yeah.
wildfires smoke.
Well, there are some wildfires in good old Canada land. And because of how bad those wildfires are in Canada land, the air quality in the entire East Coast went into what Trad would call the Mexico filter was placed on the sky. The air quality was so poor that I did not go outside at all because I didn't want to accidentally feel like I was smoking cigarettes. The air quality was so bad that Major League Baseball postponed games in the affected area, which I have never heard of a sports league postponing games due to the quality of the air outside and not for anything like actual precipitation on the ground. So let's just go out and blame the guy that's actually responsible for the Canadian wildfires. Well, let's talk about the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and his environmentalist policy. You could argue that his environmentalist policy caused these wildfires. I could be dead wrong on this, but gentlemen, any thoughts on this?
I'm sorry, did you say Trudeau? I think the correction is Castro Jr.
Yeah, I mean, this is just another case. So I'm from a state that usually has to go through something similar. Basically, whenever Kansas starts burning their crops for the next planting season, the winds will usually drift all of the smoke up into my state, and it becomes very difficult to breathe. And it seems Canada is now doing that to us at a huge rate. And I have family that live out in New York, and it's just ridiculous. And so, personally, I think if Constantine, our general secretary, were here, he would likely start humming the tune of "Blame Canada" from South Park, and I think it's apt.
And just to put a point on that, there is the air quality in certain other places around the country. It's bad every year. Let's take California. The California wildfires spread bad air quality all the way out west. And nobody talks about that because it's considered normal. Because it's over here now, we got to talk about it.
Well, okay. I will say, while I don't feel sick or anything, the sky looks a little different at the dawn and the sun and the setting of the sun. So yeah, I don't think that that's very nice. I know it happens to the Californians all the time, but at the end of the day, do Californians even exist?
I don't think we've ever seen evidence of that. So
Yeah.
it is a contested point. However, I will say,
You know that Joe Capre is a California resident and he is in our audience right now.
well, I
Yes,
know
and
that
we know
he
he's
Joe.
the
Hold on,
government
here's the thing:
psyop,
we
though.
know that Joe claims that, but he also is a government psyop. So it doesn't. We haven't seen a real Californian. That being said, I also would like to make the point while we're on New York that any kind this kind of thing that we're seeing with, all this smoke drifting through the eastern seaboard, it is just to show, like, what will happen if we keep having, garbage pollution and, corporations treating the earth like crap. And so I think people need to actually realize that more. But don't mistake me for Greta Thunberg here, where I'm just going to be like, all energy is bad. This is just my chance to tell you to invest in nuclear energy, not fossil fuels, and definitely not renewable. Renewable does not work.
See also the attempts to put windmills on Cape Cod. Nobody wanted them.
Yeah. Basil, do you have something to say?
No, I'm just agreeing that renewable energy doesn't work.
Yeah, no, never has, never will work.
Let's
Well, unless you live in that one island that has so much wind that they're producing more energy than they know what to do with.
Yeah, honestly, it's just like this could happen daily if we don't actually invest in good energy, and there's not enough energy that will come out of renewable to solve that issue. Nuclear is the future here,
Yeah,
But we love
or a
nuclear.
Dyson sphere.
or a Dyson sphere, but I don't think we're quite to that level yet. But whenever we
Well,
do get to a kind of Star Trek paradise, where everyone's a space communist, then we can
I always
probably.
thought it was space fascism.
No, they're space communists. Star Wars is space fascism.
Well, maybe if the government stops spending so much money trying to psyop us into believing California is real, we would be there at this point.
We'd have more money.
I mean, I'm just saying,
Once we get space lasers, first thing we're doing is disconnecting California and blowing it off into the Pacific.
Right? The map would be so much more interesting if it was an island like everyone thought it would. Or thought
Yeah.
it would? Thought it was.
Yeah,
I thought California wasn't real.
it's either
mean,
that or nuke it along the San Andreas fault line. Pull a MacArthur.
That, okay.
We love
Ethical
MacArthur.
questions are just, okay, the moral questions of all those, like, civilian towns aside, that would have been a brilliant plan.
No, the moral good of blowing California off the map outweighs heavily however many people die.
No, I was talking about Korea.
Oh. So you
'Cause, like-
agree? You agree that it's not a bad thing to nuke Californians?
If they existed, yes, I would agree it's not a bad thing to do.
Monarchist of America does not support nuking Californians officially.
Nor do we support acknowledging the existence of Californians. Anyways, wait, are they a topic later?
Yeah, I think they are. So I think we will move on then to our next topic before we get back to Californians, because we need to save our jokes. So next is
California, on the Ashton, Topeka, and the sand. Okay.
So, conservatives have been boycotting a beer which I will not give my exact description of the taste of this beer on this podcast because it'll get censored and we'll lose our cookie. All I'm going to say is that Bud Light sales have gone through the floor.
yeah.
To call Bud Light beer is an insult to beer. But
then
again, most American beer is that bad. But I digress.
As was said so eloquently by my mother when we last spoke on the topic, Bud Light is grain water. It's not beer. There's no light about it. It's just water. And I mean, irregardless of the fact that it's not real beer, it also just this whole marketing campaign. Well, the funny thing to me isn't that they just screwed up the marketing the first time. It's that they didn't try and double down. They tried to reverse it, and it didn't go well. They made an ad where it's like, trucks hauling stuff and people riding horses and, log cabins in the woods. Like, trying to appeal to the people who were boycotting them, and it didn't work. Like, they're a Walmart.
They saw through.
There are stores like Walmart's near me where there's just big stacks of Bud Lights, and it just says, "Please take them." Like, no price on them, just take them. Because no one can sell it anymore. It's not a profitable thing to carry anymore.
I convinced my mom to switch to Coors Light.
Yeah, same
She
difference.
said she likes it.
It's all the same.
She
Busch, Coors, Bud,
wait, it's owned by Budweiser?
Dude, they're all... No, I'm saying they all just taste... Dude, they're
Oh,
all
okay,
just
okay,
water.
yeah. Well, look, Mom doesn't like anything stronger.
Then
I'm
get her to buy
sorry.
any of the other generic brands. They're all the same.
She doesn't like. She used to drink Miller Lite, and then one day she decided she didn't like it. So I mean, it's.
I mean, honestly, you probably get a better buzz drinking radioactive water. In my opinion.
Look, radioactive water is a prized staple of mid-Michigan.
I think you mean Flint.
No, that's just lead water. We decided to be a little more traditional in our poison.
Yeah. Next time I try your tap water, it's just gonna be spicy.
Okay, allegedly it's fine with the filter. I don't
Allegedly.
buy it.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Anyway, back to talking about bottled Flinter. Bud Light. Anyway, Krieger, I'm sure you have something to say on this topic.
Bud Light bad. Because it tastes bad.
So, and I just wanted to jump in here and say that Anheuser-Busch owns not just Bud Light, but a ton of other beer brands.
Name them. He did not have a list ready.
They own the one with the horses at Christmas time.
Yes,
What?
some of the Anheuser brands are Budweiser, Bud Light, Budweiser Select, Budweiser American Ale, Bud Dry, Bud Ice,
If it says Bud, you can move on. What other
yeah,
non-Buds?
Appalachian Mountain, Blue Point, Breckenridge Brewery, Cisco Brewers.
Places to
brands
avoid.
Anheuser-Busch. Brands Anheuser-Busch. Let's go to the official website. Budweiser, Bud Light, Kona Big Wave, Michelob Ultra, Stella Artois, Estrella Jalisco, Busch Beer, Natural Light, Landshark Lager, Presidente Beer, Hoegaarden Shock Top, and their craft partners, 10 Barrel Brewing Company, Blue Point Brewing Company, Breckenridge Brewery, Cisco Brewers, Devil's Backbone, Elysian Brewing, Four Peaks Brewing, Golden Road, Goose Island, Carback, Omission Balance Brewing, Red Hook, Square Mile Cider, Veza Sur, Virtue Cider, Wicked Weed Brewing, Widmer Brothers, Winwood Brewing, and they also own Cutwater, Neutral, Vodka, Seltzer, Real Juice, Rita's, and Hoop Tea. Those are the
Tea?
brands of Anheuser-Busch.
Well, firstly, that's a lot. Secondly, you butchered one of those.
I
It was Estrella Jalisco. But anyways, yeah. So those are the brands not to drink. Drink anything else. If you are drinking legally and responsibly, as Moa says you should. Anyway.
Well, okay, I would like to correct the record. It wasn't Natural Light that Mom used to drink. It was Natural Light.
Oh! Anheuser-Busch is actually owned by InBev.
Who?
Don't know what that is.
InBev. It's a brewing conglomerate, and I will give you the AB InBev, our brands. I am on their website.
Oh boy.
And unfortunately, I have to give my birth date. Give me a moment.
Yes. To look at brands, you must verify your age.
Okay.
Yes.
By the way, that brings me to a little tangent. why do you have to put in your age for looking at beer brands, but not for adult websites? Just
Because getting you addicted to adult
All
websites
right.
is
Because
Our beers. Let's see. Aguila Original, Bex, Brahma. How do I operate this?
I don't think you need to butcher any more brand names, Victor.
Budweiser, Cass,
Budweiser.
Castle Beer, Corona Extra,
No.
Harbin.
No.
It's over.
Please don't. Please tell me they don't
so
own.
hard.
Please tell me.
Garden,
I think they do own Modelo.
If they own Modelo, I'm going to cry.
Jupiler, Leffe, Michelob Ultra,
We need to get Victor into some foreign language classes.
Modelo.
No! I cannot believe this.
Day is actually ruined.
I cannot pronounce this. It looks like Quilmes.
Guillemets? I don't know.
Quilmes.
Yeah, Guillemets. Anyway,
All right,
well, that's my.
Quilmes. SK could be an O or a Q. L. Stella Artois. Those are the beer brands owned by AB InBev.
okay.
Well, now Krieger's Day is ruined because Modelo is owned by them. But that did bring me to a news topic that I don't remember if we covered. But y'all remember a week or two ago when Utah, it might have been last month actually, but when Utah basically made it illegal to access adult sites without verifying your age, like with an ID.
Mhm.
I think I remember mentioning it briefly. Maybe.
Well, the Black and Orange website got so mad about that they stopped doing business in Utah, which just begs the question, why are they getting so mad that they're going to stop doing business because they can't show adult content to children? Just a thought.
And also, I like the idea that Utah. I like the idea that Pornhub is moving out of Utah. It's like that's probably exactly what it's like when Pornhub stopped doing it and stopped giving service in Russia after the invasion of Ukraine. It's like you're making your enemy stronger, not weaker. Like you realize that porn kills, right? Like it's like you're taking it's like you aren't pressing a knife to his throat, you know?
Well, it just put me in the position of now having to put Utah on states I'd move to list.
Yeah,
It's right there. It's right there below Texas and Florida.
Yeah, I mean Utah. Let me talk to you.
Set an example. Let everyone else follow.
Utah, let me tell you this for a moment.
Consider
I
the
love what you've done.
following.
A huge fan of your work. First time, a long time viewer, first time caller or something. Listener, first time caller. You have done some fabulous work here. I love it. But you can go further, right? Why have age verification when you can just ban it outright, force a case to the Supreme Court, and get that stupid case that allowed porn in the first place overturned? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, all the Supreme Court can do is agree with the stupid decision it reached like 50 years ago. So
one person I remember was talking about this, something similar. They said if they can overturn Roe v. Wade, then they'll start, doing this and that. And one of the things they mentioned was banning pornography. Yes, that is exactly what we're going. That is exactly what we're going to do.
That is exactly what will happen.
We are not gonna back down. It is I mean, to quote people with the first Trump impeachment, the walls are closing in.
The walls are closing in. Anyway, and open call from me specifically, not from Moa, but from me on the supposedly Catholic President Joe Biden to just sign an executive order and do away with this pornography nonsense.
This pornography nonsense.
I mean, it's really simple. Okay, if everyone, I mean, really, I mean, it's just so hilarious that we live in this society where people are like, well, why aren't young people working? Well, I don't know. Maybe because you're doing everything in your power to disincentivize children or like young people from like pursuing a career. Like not just with like the pornography thing, but like with education and it's just everything. And it's like you're wondering why young people aren't aren't going anywhere. It's like it's another thing too. It's like apparently the rate of like adolescents or people who are minors like fornicating or whatever has gone down, but that's not because people are getting more chaste. That's because everyone's addicted to pornography. It's like how do these people not realize that this is how you kill society? Like I mean,
I
are these people trying to kill the American nation?
Well, I'm of the opinion, personally, that we allow too much freedom in the way of sinful or just immoral act. And what this causes is that people don't get enjoyment out of things anymore. The things like the in your brain, the things that make you happy when you have sex or when you know, like have an emotional bond with someone are burnt out by pornography and hookup culture. The things that make you happy when you know, like spend a long time doing something like reading, taking in information is burned away by quick things like TikTok, which just swipe, 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 right, the next thing. Like no one has the attention, no one feels anything anymore. We're just numb to anything that could affect us, and it just causes us to feel like there's nothing good out there, which leads to people becoming depressed like our generation is. No one's happy anymore. No one knows how to feel because we can't feel anymore. It's just numbing. And that's why I'm such an advocate against these seemingly harmless things, because they are absolutely destroying our society and our culture. And there's no over defining ideals of morality anymore.
And
Anyone can do anything and be justified in it.
I just gotta say, once again, because this is an addiction. I think I don't really trust anything in my necessarily trust anything in my shrink textbook because of all the modern stuff it pushes. But I think it was my shrink teacher who said that a psychological addiction is actually worse than a physical addiction. So
Mhm.
pornography, um, people have gotten addicted to this, and it is extremely hard to break. So to anybody who is struggling with this, just know that a lot of people have been there, and a lot of people will continue to be there, and it can get better, and it will get better if you try. And you can get through this. Anyone can get through this. You got the champ. Um, I don't know. I'm sure Matt Fradd has some advice or whatever, but it's if you wanted to ask me my advice, find something to um get a hobby like an actual hobby. I know everyone jokes about my uh train obsession, but I have just almost completed a project because Hornby sent me a uh, detail and perfect model. There's glue marks or something, and I couldn't get it off. And I had a good body shell, right? Except the handrails were broken, right? And it's kind of hard to describe in an audio only podcast. But basically, I had to ultimately snap off the smoke box, which is the front part door, snap that off of a good one off, put it on the bad smoke, replace the bad smoke box, and now I have a basically perfect one. This took a lot of time. It results in very little practical improvement. But once I'm done, once I have the handrails painted, because some of the paint's worn off the handrails, I will have what I wanted. A dang product that actually works. That's actually fine. Like it should have been from the factory. Hornby. Hornby. There's this thing called quality control. Have someone look at the models and make sure there isn't a bunch of visible glue. Okay, I'm sorry. This is a different rant. But anyways, what I'm saying is get a hobby. I think it helps. It's all about um distracting yourselves, removing yourselves from situations of temptation. If you can, if you can at all help that. Um, and pray for your patron saints intercession. Um, pray for Saint uh Saint Mary's intercession, Saint Joseph's intercession. Because you don't have to go it alone, is what I'm saying. There's quite a lot of people who are praying for you. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So,
Charles, I don't want to bring the bringer of bad news, but I don't think the Chinese sweatshop that the models are being made in particularly care about quality control.
Okay, I still think that the model arriving as it is was divine punishment.
True. Anyway,
Don't buy
we
from
are
Hornby. Okay, I'm not going to be buying from Hornby until they change. I need to state the record on that.
moving on.
yeah,
Did someone
that was-
flash across the screen for a second?
No, I don't know. Anyway,
What?
Victor, what were you gonna say?
I was going to just say that it is so like this kind of stuff is so pervasive now that it is just sad and sickening when an 11-year-old knows everything about the marital act, and there ain't a thing you can do to get them to not know it.
Well, I mean, living in like the most remote areas in the world and having no access to technology, but I don't think the average Joe is going to do that.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you can't shelter children from certain. You can't shelter children from not knowing that this stuff is an issue.
No, but I also think that you can absolutely prevent it from happening to people earlier in their life than they need to know about it. I mean, myself, the first time I was introduced to something like that was when I was 10 years old, which is ridiculous. So it absolutely can be prevented because I would not have even been able to find it if I didn't have an internet connection.
Yeah, it is incredibly pervasive in all of the forms that it takes, and including a certain other site called OnlyFans.
Ban it. Kill it.
I
mean-
You see, here's the problem. Some people use OnlyFans not as a porn site, but unfortunately for OnlyFans, that is what it's known for.
Okay. It's. I mean, if your terms of service allow it, then I'm sorry, but the company just needs to go. I mean, if I remember correctly, after a lot of pushback, the OnlyFans people were like, "We're not going to allow it anymore," and then there was more pushback, and the OnlyFans people were like, "Fine, fine, we'll keep allowing this stuff." But I'm sorry, you can't just use a website. I don't know. Maybe this is a double standard because YouTube also allows a lot of fairly stupid stuff. but not that kind of stupid stuff. It's just we need to really start, and I'm hoping, to bring it back to Bud Light for a second. I'm hoping that this is now people are gonna wake up and start actually pushing back on this, because it's not just Bud Light, Coca-Cola is like that, supporting all this stuff. a- and all these other companies, Ford and whatnot. And in a certain sense, you can't get away from it completely because if every single car manufacturer is puts out a rainbow ad, well, what are you supposed to do? Get a horse? I mean,
I mean, I wouldn't be
maybe.
opposed, but anyways.
I had to check the city ordinances on that, but maybe my daily commute.
Okay, let's get back to, I guess, sort of.
I'll let Trad finish what he was gonna say, because public schools need to not.
All right, I'm going to assume Trad didn't have anything to say because he hasn't opened his mouth.
Yeah.
So,
I
by
can
the way,
hear you.
Trad, if you're trying to talk right now, you muted yourself.
No,
No.
we can hear him. No,
He's gone insane.
Vic, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
I also cannot hear
That's
Trad.
All right.
Hold on.
Okay,
So
Trad disconnected.
no,
So,
he disconnected to reconnect because we could
I
all hear
am
him.
back. Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay,
Okay.
wonderful, wunderbar. So, as I was saying, there's an element of this in public schools that needs to be addressed as well, because there's books and curriculum that's being introduced to people 8th grade and below and above, but it's especially horrible below, which is, these books that teach kids about not love but sexuality, and not about how love develops, but how people have adult relations with each other. It teaches them, this ungodly garbage at the age where they're so young that it's picture books. Picture books. It's absolutely ridiculous, and the fact that it's in public schools tells me that my kids will never be going to a public school.
Would you like to tell us about the little game that some special guests did at your school?
Yeah, so I'm in high school, and this was during my junior year, and basically the finals for this specific class had already been done. So instead, on finals day, some advocates for Planned Parenthood were brought into the school, and we got to play a game where we all sat in a circle, and they
And
would read off.
just to let everyone know, you go to a public school in Lincoln, Nebraska, correct?
Correct.
man
And
Okay.
really doxed him on the podcast.
I doxed myself on the podcast, man. But you get to sit in a circle. You can't not do this. You have to do it. They give you a name tag, and then they read out the name tags of these characters committing horrible acts, either by having adult relations, sex with each other, about the horrible ways they do it, about doing it with or without consent, about doing drugs like weed or heroin or cocaine. It's and you don't get a choice. And then what they do is that once they read off that card, they give you a string and attach it to the person, and then give the other end to the person who you did the act with. And it was absolutely disgusting. And they then proceeded to hand out free contraception and show people how to get to abortion clinics, and I was outraged, as was the bishop of my diocese.
To
And
which the bishop said that you contacted your bishop.
yes, and he told me that he would pray for me and for the school district, and it, which I very much appreciate and love. But I just can't believe that this has been allowed in public schools near children.
It's not as explicit, but today I work at an institution that shall remain nameless. And a field trip came in with this. I think it was the kindergarten teacher with the little flag, and I'm an ally on her little button thing, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but no. I mean, this is, firstly, I don't know what a LGBTQ ally is, but it shouldn't be allowed near children.
I
um,
know. Okay. If you'll allow me to
I
answer
know, I know. I
that.
was just making a joke. I know
Okay.
what it. I know. I was just, but it's just insidious. I mean it. I mean, like, obviously, I'm not trying to dehumanize the woman, but but like, you. I'm sorry, you shouldn't be allowed around children. If you really think that people should mutilate themselves, children should be allowed to get themselves mutilated by doctors, then you shouldn't be allowed near children. I mean, these people, and I don't want to say that this isn't that these teachers are specifically trying to get into jobs with the most impressionable of the youth, but you kind of can't help but think that. And
It's, in my opinion, these kinds of people whose work was inspired by Alfred Kinsey and John Money and their like need to be sent back into the shadow where they came from.
I mean, I also want to say, not saying this about any specific teacher that but this is, make no mistake, this is all from the devil. And if and and a lot of people like to dismiss the role that religion has. People like to act functionally atheist outside, even religious people like to act functionally as atheist outside of anything that is specific to religion, right? So there's people who will say, oh yeah, Fatima, but not uh believe in the possibility of ghost haunting people, you know which, to a certain extent, you don't have to believe anything that the church says you don't have to believe. But we can't ignore the role that the devil has in promoting all of this nonsense, and it's not gonna stop until we make it stop. um and yeah, uh ultimately, though, um the cross will triumph. It's like that church, or it's like that former mosque in Hungary, where where it was either was turned into a church or was turned back into a church. I don't know how old the structure was, but they left the crescent, but they put a cross on top of it, which I think is unfathomably based. But we're gonna come back. I'm not saying that the public school system should still be intact by the time we're done. I kind of think that the public school system, yeah. I mean, firstly, most public school buildings physically are ugly as, well, sin anyway. So anyway, I don't know.
As
And let's just. Oh, sorry, Basil. Go ahead.
what I was going to say is, so near where I live, I used to go to a public elementary school, and the way that this elementary school was structured was metal roof, massive fence gates. All the windows were barred for some reason, and there was always a police officer there. And even when I was in elementary school, it always struck me as odd that at a public education facility, it was very much like a prison for the students inside, which makes you wonder.
Absolutely indistinguishable.
Yeah, no, I
Absolutely
mean,
indistinguishable.
I mean, at least in prison the food's better. No,
That's true.
And on top of that,
beg
we
to
had to
differ.
pay for our food.
oh,
I beg to differ. Some of the food that I had in school was delicious.
yeah, I
Well,
know,
you're
but you went to
from,
Catholic school like me.
yeah.
No, I mean, no, I mean, honestly though, Catholic, okay, I will say this one story, right? So I went to Catholic school all my life, except for college, which is stupid. Anyways, and all during Lent, it was completely vegetarian meals on Friday. Do you know what we had the next Friday after we came back from Lent? Fish sticks. I'm sorry, I just had to spend an entire Lent without fish sticks from the school, and then the Friday after, and this is before I stopped eating meat on Fridays in general, because I didn't know that was a thing we did. This is what you're doing. This is like I don't say this to the lunch lady, but I was thinking and I was like talking about it in the line. It's like, elementary school. Those were the days.
So
They did us dirty, simply.
okay, let's speaking of religion, because you brought it up, Charles. Let's talk about it again because Trad was not here, and neither was Basil. The mockery of the Catholic faith by a group of
Drag
people
queens.
who call themselves the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence that were invited to a Dodgers game on the 16th of this month.
Which, I mean, firstly, just their name is an absolute just mockery of the faith, because one thing we don't do as Catholics is indulge. That
It's not
is
just a mockery of the faith, it's a mockery of Our Lady under her title, Our Lady of Perpetual Help. I believe I mentioned this the first time we talked about it.
yeah. And I'm just mad that this has been allowed in a highly Catholic area, like LA. And it makes me question the fact that the team is still called the Angels and the town is
No, no,
called
no,
the
no, no, no,
Angels.
no. The Angels are the other team. This is the Dodgers.
Oh yeah. Well, still, if they're permitted in the same city, why is Los Angeles still called the City of the Angels when it is clearly a city of debauchery and, well, that we've mostly known already. But this just kind of seals the deal on it. And just personally, I'm kind of glad that Bishop Strickland from Texas, he is going out and leading a Eucharistic, I believe it is procession out to the Dodgers Stadium, just calling for repentance of the Dodgers and the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and such, and praying for them and for the people of Los Angeles, which, in my opinion, is both noble and just something that we should all strive to mimic.
In
But
other more local news, the Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., will be hosting a holy sacrifice, the Mass, at 5:30 this upcoming Wednesday, which they are dubbing a Pride Mass.
if we're all for equity and inclusion, I think we should also have a greed mass, a wrath mass, a lust mass. I mean, if we're doing all of the deadly sin here, if we're being fair,
like, why did they go with Pride?
because Washington, D.C. is a whole of progressivism and modernism, and it needs to be washed in
No, no,
nuclear
no, 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 no,
hellfire.
no. I'm talking about why did the LGBT people come up with stuff like pride parades, and why
Oh,
do they call all of it stuff pride?
Oh, I thought you were
well,
asking about the
Because we're
the
loud and we're proud. Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? We pride, because there's the sin of pride, and then there's like in the English language, there's two connotations for pride. There's, the actual bad, sinful pride, but then there's the connotation of, you did a job well done, and it's like a humble thing where it's, like,
that's
yeah,
being proud.
yeah, that's being proud. So it's, they want, these people want to do the good connotation, but at the same time, there is no good connotation to the kind of pride what talking about.
Yeah, and also, Victor, I thought at first you were referring to the demonic incursion into our church, which, as I might say, Yeah, I thought you were asking why they decided to do it in a Catholic church, and why they why the pastor of this church decided to allow it. Well, it's simply because they can't destroy us from the outside, so they attempt to destroy us from the inside. Simple as.
And speaking
And
of destroying from the inside, another news story. Father James Jackson of the priestly fraternity of St. Peter has pled guilty to the charge of reception of
Child pornography.
You could
yes,
say it. Charles
okay,
won't
child
strike you down.
pornography. Reception of child pornography. He is, I believe, the first priest inside of the former Ecclesia Dei communities, SSPX excluded, of course, because they are not in full communion with the church. He is the first priest in one of those traditional communities in full communion with the church to have been dealt this, to have had a guilty verdict, even if it
Yeah.
was that he pled guilty.
I mean, personally, I think the only reason that this actually became a big news story was because he was a member of the fraternity, and not actually due to the seriousness or just general, a bit of his crimes. Here's the thing: people, like to say that Catholics are or protect child molesters. No, if someone does that, they deserve prison, pain, and, in the opinion of some folks, death. And here's my opinion. In my opinion, I agree with that. And I also would state that in what was the specific? I don't remember the book, chapter, and verse, but Christ said, "If there is one who will lead the little ones away from me, let him rather be tied to a millstone and tossed into the ocean."
Yeah, the
And
fact.
I will say that the fraternity statement was, I don't know if Trad, you got to see the fraternity statement on this.
I was not able
They
to know.
they released a statement on their website. It was very milquetoast. It read like any statement that would have been given by a diocese that dealt with this issue.
Which, in my opinion, hindsight's 2020. I think that we may not have to come down so hardly on the fraternity itself, but to this Father James Jackson, you said, to him, if he really did it, then he deserves prison entirely.
Which he is
And
going to be going to prison.
yes, because he pled guilty. So I don't think there's any Catholic here who disagrees with that.
Yeah, I mean, really, the only thing that I would say is that a better punishment for anyone in this case, let the church punish them, is what I'm saying. Is
Mhm.
that what do you call it? A cell, and send the guy to send any priest who does this to a monastery, to for the rest of his life, where the only person he talks to is a confessor. That is a punishment I think that's been employed before, and I think that let if the cleric, if our hierarchy were serious, I mean, if our hierarchy, I would say to all the bishops, I would recommend this to you as a punishment. If you find a priest who does this, give him the option of that, or just throwing him over to the secular authorities. But yeah, so because this can't happen. I'm sorry, anyone who, because I mean, firstly, it's a scandal to everyone else, but it's just, you guys, everyone who's like, oh boy, we the Catholic Church loves abusers. No, we don't. Okay, I'm sorry, but if you think that we do, that is just no. I mean, we despise this just as much as you guys, just as much as anyone should, and it.
How to continue on your point, I would say that firstly, like you said, we all condemn this. This was horrible. However, this is not a chance to say, "Oh, there's a problem with this in the church." Like it is a problem. It is not a problem of the church. What I'm saying is that this is not specific to the church. In fact, when compared to population rates in the U.S., the amount of Catholic priests who actually commit crimes like this is lower than the average percentage of U.S. citizens in general who do this. And on average, about 200 Catholic priests or clergymen in general are arrested for such crimes yearly. And a couple 100,000 teachers a year are arrested for the same crimes. So there's no way it is just a church problem. This is a societal problem. And one that
I
is
just
actually rather muted in the church.
and I just posted the FSSP's statement in a Catholic chat. If you will permit me to read it. The North American province of the FSSP, they gave out the full name, Fraternity of St. Peter, is aware that on June 8, 2023, Father James Jackson entered a guilty plea in exchange for a reduced sentence. The Fraternity of St. Peter pledges to cooperate with civil and ecclesiastical authorities in this case. Father Jackson has not had faculties to function publicly as a priest since his arrest in October 2021. Until Father Jackson was arrested, the Fraternity of St. Peter was not aware of anything in his words or behavior that could give rise to suspicion concerning such actions. Crimes of this type are
Execrable.
execrable, and Catholics should pray for victims of pornography and work to put an end to its industry. Okay, so
And I
I suppose,
actually, I do fairly agree with what they say at the end, that
yeah.
I think that a lot of the modern happenings of these kind of crimes come from pornography and the expanded role of hookup culture and the idea that having sex is just having sex. There's nothing important about it. I think that has also caused just that kind of rise in general society of this happening.
And just for full disclosure, both Trad Raider and I attend fraternity parishes. Neither of us knew Father Jackson.
No, because he was in a different state, I believe. I don't remember what state he was in, but
Yeah.
nowhere near us. So I think it's, and honestly, this, just like I was saying, is a societal problem that the church suffers from less than average society, but it still is that is in no way excusing the crimes of these people, anyone who does it, and I think that it's a fair MOA official statement to say that we condemn this crime.
Yeah, there is no excuse. You can. I mean, Dragnet, for crying out loud, had a statement on this. Where some guy um was found out for this, and the police chief says, well, you can empathize with him to a point, because he was dealt a bad hand, is what he said, but you kind of stop when he actually does something, or something to that effect. It's there. There's just a lot that goes wrong right now, and it's just a sad thing. There's just not much you can
Truly.
say about it.
But sadly, on the topic of kind of children being corrupted with sexual immorality, let's talk about California.
Yes, let us talk about California. California, the California State Assembly, which is their lower house, there is a bill introduced there which says that Parents who refuse to affirm their child's preferred pronouns
And
is
gender, for that
committing,
matter, I believe.
yes, of course, which is under the penumbra of child abuse.
Which is completely ridiculous. The idea that simply affirming biology, simply saying you are not, if it's a little boy who thinks he's a girl, saying no, you're not, is child abuse. Absolutely ridiculous. And once again leads into why we should blow California off the map.
No, and to further jump into that, the idea that a small child is even capable of rationalizing and deciding on these factors, which have long-term ramifications for their entire life, is utterly insane. You have people in high school who still can't even make decisions like this. How can you expect a small child, say someone under 12, to be able to even conceive this idea? I mean, the truth of the matter is that they don't care about their children. They just care about destroying you.
I mean, kids can't work, they can't drink, they can't own firearms, they can't vote. What is the rationale behind children not being able to do so many of these things? They can't even buy, like, even places where certain drugs are legal, they can't buy them. So what's the legal rationale? Well, the legal rationale behind these decisions that children can't do certain things is that they don't have good decision-making skills. Right? Kids can't drink responsibly or drink at all because it harms their brain. They can't use firearms responsibly. They can't consider the ramifications. They can't work because they cannot do that safely or effectively, and they can't even consider the choice to do it. So it's forced labor. So children don't have the capacity to make these decisions. So why, oh why, would they suddenly have the capacity to change their gender? Which, by the way, I think sex
Simply do not.
is a better term, because gender was made up by,
Gender's fake.
yeah, it was made up by a pedophile, literally. But thinking that a child can just decide their sex, right? They can just pick. They can be this, they can be that, they can be a male, they can be a female, they can be a nothing, a non-binary, they can be a gender, they can be like all this garbage. It's simply it's corruption. It's evil. There's no other way to put it. There's no way you can justify telling a child that they are what they aren't. Not without evil. And anyone who says, oh, it's for their mental health, so the only sound argument, like even slightly sound argument I've ever heard for this was, well, it's treating mental illness. You don't treat mental illness by encouraging the symptoms. You don't look at schizophrenics and say, yes, there are bugs under your skin and people in your walls. Fight them. You don't tell people with rampant psychosis that they should go start killing people. You don't, you don't tell people with ADHD to keep bouncing around off the walls. You don't tell people with any sort of mental disorder or disability that it's a good thing. You treat it medically, you fix it. And treating medically is not disfiguring the human body, it's treating the brain to quit having these thoughts, or to at least push it back. It is not a matter of disfigurement of a child. And the fact that there are people who are calling human rights violations in my state because they banned and I quote, gender affirming healthcare for children. The fact that people are calling that a human rights violation is in and of itself a violation of human ethics and morals. It is absolutely debauched and deranged.
It's
I should probably just say, now that I'm thinking about it, the fraternity statement isn't as bad as I thought as I portrayed it. Upon reflection, I'd like to apologize to the fraternity for calling their statement milk toast.
Anyway, back to California. Krieger, opinions
What?
on California?
I think it's I mean, whatever you think about it, the whole transgender talk, calling someone by their preferred pronouns or names or whatever, that's just like, that can be whatever you want, whether you think that, that you're whether you're gonna do it or not, because you have like the decency, even if you don't agree with what they're doing, to like, respect their decisions, like to a certain extent, treat them nicely, but don't condone the sin. But like,
Someone being sinful is not an excuse to be sinful to them.
yeah, but what the like what California wants to do, that's just too far. Like, I can be
Criminalizing facts.
like I can be mean to someone, right? Like, I can just like think that like, but saying that like it's the equivalent of child abuse because I think my kid cannot like make this kind of decision. Like, I think it's child abuse. That's just insane. Like, I can't even get a coherent thought out of this. It's just that insane. I can't wrap my mind around it. Like,
And it also leads me to a point where I think that if you convince your child that they are whatever they're claiming to be, right? Boy playing with Barbies, suddenly he's a girl, or a girl playing with, monster trucks, she's a boy. I think that to an extent that is child abuse. To convince a child that they something different is abuse. It's basically just gaslighting them about their physical and mental biology.
Let's
There's nothing excusable about that in the slightest.
Not even a little bit. Anyway, to move off of a somber and sad discussion that we've just had,
yes.
I think we shall let my duplicate over here go on his happy day rant about tomorrow. Charles?
Yes. Well, tomorrow and 2 days ago, if you are watching this on Monday, is the birthday of the old pretender, the son of the servant of God, James II, lawful king of Great Britain's, or lawful king of, sorry, Great Britain is some sort of Hanoverian term, lawful king of England, Scotland, Wales. And I'm sorry, it's been a minute. Lawful king of England, Scotland,
Scotland
Ireland,
and
and
Ireland.
their empire across the seas. Yes, it is the birthday of His Majesty James III, the father of the first and real Charles III. These names get
Yes.
confusing.
The old wizard man in his hut, Anyway, but yes, happy birthday indeed it's too early for us and too late for the people listening afterwards, but happy birthday.
Happy
Yes.
birthday indeed.
No, we're not gonna sing
Birds.
that.
Aww, unbelievable. I'd pay
Well,
you money to do that.
They pay me
So
money.
let's go into a little bit of, I believe for the first time on this podcast, we will be discussing alternate history. So
Shall we?
let's discuss, Charles, your, like, in your ideal scenario, only changing what we now know as Great Britain. Well, you can change anything that's absolutely relevant for butterfly effect, but
Give us your alternate history. I think everyone should give at least one alternate history scenario that they would love to see in the real world.
all right, Charles, you go first. What is your ideal Jacobite realm?
Honestly, just a continued expansion of the king. And this is, I mean, I'm gonna stray away from pure alternate history. Just what I would like to see in general. Just the kingdoms as they are. Just England, Scotland, Ireland. Nowadays it would be Canada, Australia, New Zealand, America. All different kingdoms, but one monarch, and I mean there was this around the turn of the last century, the phrase one empire, one king, one flag. Well, I guess there'd be a lot of flags, one fleet, one flag, sorry. But yeah, no, that that would that would be a fair start. This is really kind of my ideal, that the king would be in charge. He would have a lot of stuff. Um, but and he would have real power. But at the same time, there would be an America and an England and a Scotland, and it wouldn't just be one homogeny. It would be the all of the good things that came out. I know we rag on Angloism a lot, but yeah, I mean but there are some good things, and Catholic. It would be all be Catholic. Uh, the Presbyterians would be put
Everything
onto a
Catholic.
boat, and then pushed across to the Netherlands. Just every all they no, I mean
Gently out into the Atlantic.
I mean it's I mean it I, I mean it's and you might say, well, that's kind of cruel. Well, it's still nicer than putting a bunch of soldiers on the banks of Ireland and killing any Catholic priest that tries to show up. I'm just saying. um yeah, I mean, if we be gentle, just push.
Yeah, just goodbye. Anyway,
Gentle
Have a
nudge
good
across the
trip.
pond.
yes, exactly. Moving on, I think we go in order from here. Basil, named after Basil II, the Bulgar Slayer. Have you a particular alternate history in mind that I totally haven't guessed already?
Well, I think I'm going to go for the one that you wouldn't expect, which is a world where, let's say, Edward III of England is far more successful in his reign. Now, Edward III is my favorite Western European monarch other than Charlemagne, the goat. But what I would like to see in this scenario was one where Edward III is actually successful in his attempts to subjugate that one continental country which exists. And maybe now, the Angevin Empire at this point was a little worse for wear, let's say, due to the reign of one fine English gentleman who we all know and love as John Lackland, or his more humorous title, John the Soft Sword. So, John really mumped things up for the English a lot. So in this one, it would be interesting to see what would happen if Edward III and his son, Edward the Black Prince, were actually able to secure their continental holdings and their dominion over France without having a more tumultuous history. And I don't really know how far it would go because of how the English court was, and then being predominantly French, much to my and all of our dismays. But it would be interesting to see how this state would evolve and go forward, and how it would handle such things as the Reformation and that sort of thing. Ideally, there would be no Reformation because it's a bit
Yes.
silly, as we all know.
Indeed.
Germans and theology never mix well, common knowledge. But
Well, Pope Benedict XVI was all right. He's German.
Yeah, but I think he means Germany as a whole,
I know.
Well, once they get into the swing
Arianism.
of things. Yes. As
Now,
for... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
You had nothing else?
Nothing of importance.
All right. I'm
Okay,
personally...
I guess the rule is, to prevent us from being called LARPers, is you have to find a way to connect this to reality to make a better future out of your alternate past.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, no, we can't just make up stuff. The God Emperor from 40K shows up and, subjugates everyone. Krieger.
What?
Anyway, so for me, I'm honestly between two of them, and you'll never guess why I'm between these two. But first one is a bit of the smaller one in scale. Italy never reunifies. Yes, and I know Krieger likes that one too. But just let
Italy, let's
Savoy
go.
let Savoy just have northern Italy, but let two Sicilies still exist, and let the Papal States exist. Simply That's number one. That's the smaller one. But the one I'd like to see more, and I know this will surprise you, but his amazing idea that is beyond all other ideas. I mostly said that because I forgot the title I was going to use. But His Majesty, His Imperial Majesty, Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire in Spain, continuing to rule both, and then his descendants continuing to rule both. That is my ideal, because the HRE would have never fallen, Spain wouldn't have fallen from grace, France wouldn't be as powerful, which I think we can all agree to. I mean, come on.
Based.
And just, well, and here's the other thing. If that happened, there could be a chain reaction where the monarchy in Mexico still exists, Krieger, and I mean, personally, it just fixes all of the issues. It also would put down all of that Protestant nonsense in the HRE. I think it would be perfect. Anyway, that's mine. Krieger,
Hi, what are we talking about?
what is your ideal alternate history? And it has to actually like have a point where it breaks off.
My ideal alternate history.
I have no idea what you're gonna say. Totally.
I'm not gonna say the obvious one because that would make you happy, and I can't let that happen.
You can say it. I mean, I'm not gonna stop you.
I mean,
Well,
the elephant in the room. Obviously, either of the Mexican empires survive, whether by cool time travel shenanigans or people not being stupid.
Or what was the one you were gonna say?
Or
You didn't have one prepared, did you?
I had one. It was really good.
And then you
Amazing, even.
Do you
Just
remember-
And I
broken
forgot.
by or something.
what if? Okay, I'm gonna change mine. What if Krieger had?
What if
What if his train of thought didn't
derail?
derail?
It's still boarding
Uh,
at the
In a
station.
timeline not too dissimilar from our own.
Not really.
right.
I think a fun one would be, what if the Mongols had pushed into Europe
Ooh.
and didn't stop at Russia, they kept going.
Now
Actually,
that
no.
would be interesting.
No, but I
Crusade
think
against
if
the
they
Mongols was hard,
actually,
though.
fully committed to invading Europe instead of like their weird, can't say what I want to say, their weird kind of dipping their toes into their wars against Poland and Hungary. Yeah, just what if they actually, fully invaded? And I am totally not doing this because Kings and Generals has a series just about this on their other channel.
Definitely
But it's a
not.
really neat scenario.
And the one that I have no idea whose actual answer is going to be, Victor.
Yes.
What would be
Because
your alternate?
I obviously would want Charles to have his ideal, and I don't want to copy anything. And I also don't want to be too obvious and go with a scenario that is about 30 to 40 years after that one. Let's go with deleting the unfortunate events that happened in the year of our Lord 1066.
1066. The great. Okay.
There were a
What
couple
are-
of events. You'll have to
Yeah.
specify.
Yeah,
King
please
Harold,
specify.
a second army has landed.
King Harold, the Normans have landed.
I was referring to, I might have gotten the year wrong. I was referring to the deletion of the Great Schism.
Oh, that was 1054.
Yeah.
1054. You're a decade late, Victor.
Yeah.
And $1 short.
Yes. Well, I actually think that would be a very interesting one where the the Catholic and Orthodox churches were united in the one Holy Catholic Apostolic Church today. That I actually really agree with. I think everyone here agrees with that.
Yes.
We just need to convince the Ortho Bros of the Pope one of these days, and then we'll be set.
Something,
Oh.
something, Pontifex Maximus, something.
Yes, indeed.
Although I think there is one other idea which generally everyone here could agree with, probably.
Oh,
The
indulgent.
the setup behind it is that the Byzantine Sassanid War doesn't go on for nearly as long as it does, and both empires are not utterly destroyed at the end of it, which would then allow for the world to generally resist a certain incursion from the south,
Oh yeah.
to not name names.
To not name names. I agree with that actually as well. Yes, that would be an optimal scenario. Plus, it means that the Ottomans would never exist, which means, in theory, the Byzantines could still exist, though they would be the Roman Empire today. Because
I feel like going through this scenario, jumping to the Napoleonic Wars, assuming they still happen, like for instance, its revolution and
Ooh.
everything.
Well,
Because
let's analyze
don't
what
want
happened.
Okay.
Let's expand this discussion. Let's
Hold
analyze
on.
why the French
Okay.
Revolution happened.
No, let me finish. Assuming that like the Byzantines do what the Ottomans did and didn't colonize because they had a pretty cool like trade network going on, which is they had no incentive to colonize. Assuming everything else stays the same and we reach the Napoleonic Wars, the Byzantine Empire could legitimately fall there because stuff
Napoleon
like
being Napoleon.
Napoleon introducing the ideas of nationalism and like liberalism.
Liberalism.
How dare you say that name?
I do think if it affects history, like if we actually go from this point in history, just totally differs. Here's what could have happened, like to prevent the French Revolution, so the French Revolution happened because the American Revolution happened by and large, and the American
Okay.
Revolution happened because people in America got rowdy over taxes, which wouldn't have been levied if England wasn't in debt, which, well, in
I
that
blame
heavy.
John Locke.
I think, well, yeah, John Locke.
George
But,
Washington.
well, let me
Oh,
continue.
I blame
Let
George.
him-
He is
Well,
our
I blame
eternal king. How dare you?
Hold on. So, the reason that England's taxes were so high was because they just spent a couple hundred years going to war with everyone. Why were they going to war with everyone? Well, specifically, it was all kicked off by the 100 Years' War, which was a religious conflict. The 100 Years' War was caused by Protestants and Catholics, having the
Wait, are you
fun.
thinking of the 30 Years' War?
I might be, and I might have. 100 Years' War is England v. France, right?
Yeah, the 30 Years' War is the one that tore the HRE apart.
Right. My bad. Sorry. Yeah, proceed to kill me in the comments. I mean, to an extent, France wouldn't have been as poor either, neither would England. But, 30 Years' War, a bit later, they also. You know what? I'm going to address it. I'm going to actually address the 100 Years' War. 100 Years' War, if that didn't happen due to religious conflicts, then the 30 Years' War would have never happened because then people wouldn't have had such high tension, right? And so
Well, if I'm correct, the 30 Years' War was primarily an internal German affair, and everyone else got involved because it became more of war politics.
Yeah, but anyway.
Something like that.
But okay, they got involved. So 100 Years' War, not 100, sorry, 30 Years' War started because of religious issues in Germany, which were spurred on earlier, of course, by Martin Luther and his whole shebang. Anyway, that was started because of indulgences, which themselves were like the abuse of indulgences was started because of the Crusades. And if the Byzantines still owned all the stuff they owned, there wouldn't have been any Crusades.
And there wouldn't have been a fourth.
And so my point being, if there weren't any Crusades, there wouldn't have been any reason for indulgences to be abused by priests and bishops to an extent, which means that Martin Luther wouldn't have done his whole shebango, which means there wouldn't have been a 100 Years' War, which means there wouldn't have been a 30 Years' War, which means England wouldn't have been in debt, which means the American Revolution wouldn't have happened, which means the French Revolution would have never happened, which means liberalism would not have been spread as quickly or as fast, if at all. So
And another thing was, I think it was Krieger who brought up the comparison between the Byzantines and the Ottomans. But something that should be noted between the two empires, which is very distinct, was how receptive they were to, for example, new technology. So for most of the Eastern Roman Empire's time, it was spent in a constant state of collapse, but also not. So the thing that with them was they would have periods of absolute peak and then absolute dismay. For example, Justinian and Basil II. And then you have other periods with what was his face? Focus during the Byzantine Sassanid Wars, where he just kind of sat there and watched the empire burn. So in a timeline or scenario where the Eastern Roman Empire goes on longer, there's a significant possibility that they are far more receptive to the ideas of the West, because why wouldn't they be? I mean, yeah, they have a sense of cultural superiority, but they also recognize when technology was better. For example, they saw the Vikings and the Northmen, and they go, "Hey, I want that," and so the Varangian Guard was formed. So there's a historical pattern of them when they're recognizing something and going, "That's cool." Although realistically, I can't see them having a massive colonial empire. Maybe they get to the Dutch East Indies and the Horn of Africa. But beyond that, it would just be like a token thing for, hey, yeah, we have that too, but not nearly as important as, say, Spain, Portugal, or
maybe they get in on the maybe they get on the rush to Africa earlier.
They probably would with the Horn.
I think
maybe
definitely.
they do the same thing. Maybe they just like, I don't know, because like the only reason the Ottomans never really had a colonial power was one, because they're in like the middle of the Mediterranean, so you really can't support an overseas empire when you're like have to go through and all the way through. They passed Gibraltar, and they got to cross the Atlantic after that. And number two, the only the main reason Spain and Portugal colonized as much as they did was because the Ottomans shut down trade.
Yeah, and the West and the East weren't exactly friendly after the Crusades, but they weren't about to embargo each other. It was still good for business.
And well, actually, now that I think about it, going off the point of divergence, I don't think Spain and Portugal would have, would Christopher Columbus even have had like gotten the money? Would there even be a Christopher Columbus? Sail across the blue ocean to get to India because we need trade routes. Because like, assuming
well, theoretically, colonization would have happened eventually.
There would be no crusades. Because, there's no reason for crusades. Because the Orthodox still have, Jerusalem and stuff. Maybe the trades to India still opened by the Byzantines for the West. I don't know. You could go a lot of different ways with this.
I mean, what I could see happening is the Byzantines maybe doing something like China, where you can trade, but there's going to be heavy taxes because they were of the opinion that they were the center of the world and everything.
Which would have made them big and prosperous and supported, say, I don't know, a colonization of Africa.
I mean, maybe they just do what the Ottomans did.
See, here's the thing. I'd say that they make a North African, South American like mega empire, and people are like, "Oh, you're crazy." But then, like, look at the Spanish Empire and the British Empire and the Portuguese, to a smaller extent, Empire. Like, it is not out of the blue. Imagine if the Treaty of Tordesillas was, but not between the Spanish and the Portuguese, but the Spanish and the Byzantines.
But again, the Byzantines would not have like the same incentive, if at all, to go with Spain and cross the Atlantic to get to the New World.
Realistically, if the Byzantines are going to go anywhere, would be east.
I mean, yeah, apart from like
into like Indonesia and India, which would then
I mean,
then you
it
have
could
a
also.
Byzantine Raj instead of a British Raj, which is far better.
I mean, yeah, just the Byzantines, maybe eventually,
To address
continuing
what
the wars with the Sassanids, maybe they should conquer Persia.
to address really fast what Koshin said, yeah, they would definitely have the geographical ability. I mean, they had African. I mean, look at Justinian. They had African territory. Like it was not like the Byzantines were incapable of reaching Africa. They would have just gone through the north instead.
Yeah, like that's what
So,
I'm
and the other
saying.
thing
They go
was
with like they reclaim North Africa.
The only
But
the idea
they
the
wouldn't lose North Africa.
here's
no,
the
they
thing.
wouldn't.
Oh,
Maybe they push south down to
Wait,
Nubia.
wait, guys. So if the Byzantine Empire never falls, then there is a very strong chance that Italy is also never unified under Italy, but it still remains with them.
that's
mean-
true. Also, another idea is that this means that Spain never had to go through the Reconquista, which means that Spain
Yeah,
could have more power.
Spain is still Visigothic.
Yep, you're
Well,
still Arian. I'm sorry.
no.
You are
They would
German now.
not necessarily, because the spread of Catholicism happened irregardless of the um, conquests of the Arabs into Spain. So, in
Right now, Arianism
theory,
was going to die out eventually.
oh yeah, no, there's no. It didn't have any centralized structure. It was it was not neo. It was proto Protestantism, in my opinion, and so it would have died off anyway. But that being said, it still means that Spain gets powerful, except this time they don't lose Portugal. Portugal just stays as part of Spain. Interesting ideas.
Again.
Interesting ideas.
Yeah.
Again,
This is
the
been a
Visigoths
very
still exist.
Although, to be fair, the thing with the Visigoths was they were going to break eventually. So in this timeline, you might end up with something like a Merovingian or Carolingian presence in Iberia instead
Well,
of
wouldn't
the
you,
Arabs.
or maybe it splits between like, because the Reconquista never united the Spanish states, maybe the Spanish kingdoms are just separate. Maybe Aragon, Castile.
No, because they would be the Visigothic kingdom of Spain.
Maybe
The Visigoths
Asturias.
owned all of Spain. They were just pushed out by the Umayyads.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I mean,
You also have to remember that before the Arabs and during the reign of Justinian, they did show up in what was at the end of the Reconquista de Granada. So the Byzantines ended up controlling the Pillars of Hercules and all that. So even then, you could end up with something where the Byzantines destroy the Visigoths, which wouldn't have been out of the question because you have commanders like Belisarius, although that's before
honestly,
the Arabs.
given Justinian and what he wanted to do, if we assume that the Byzantines were stronger and Justinian had the better manpower, he could have just retaken the entire Roman Empire, or at least put it under more Roman control. And at this time, the Great Schism wouldn't have happened, which means Catholicism would still be spread, or at least the one Holy Catholic, yada yada yada, would have been spread throughout Spain. So Arianism gone.
Yeah,
Visigothic would still be fairly like the culture, but I mean, with French incoming, it would have been a little more Latinized. So who knows, man? There's a lot of interesting things that could happen. It also means that Britain never gets anything important, and we can just pretend they don't exist ever again.
Let's go.
What now?
Let's go.
So
No, Britain historically has mostly been insignificant. Not until
let's,
the Crusades and later. Sorry, go.
okay.
Anyway, Victor.
This has been a very fun discussion tonight. Let's do Charles, would you like to take us home?
Is there anything else that needs to be said?
No?
I think we're all good.
Okay. All right,
We
what I'm
should,
about to
we should
say.
have an entire fun episode where we just spend 2 hours going on a rant about one agreed upon alternate history scenario.
That would be a nice fun episode.
Okay, so what I'm about to say is very important. You all have to pay attention. If you would like to join us live for Monarchist Minute, then you can mosey on down to our Discord server. Link
Link
in the
in the
description.
description below.
If you would like to see our mad ravings on the Twitter, then you can hop on over to the Twitter. Link in the description below. Or should I say you can fly over to our Twitter? Haha, it was too late to make that joke. If you would like to hop over to our Gab, then you can do that by clicking on the link in the description below. If you would like to see all the other stuff I can't think of jokes for, then you can go down to the link
in the description below.
Alright, and since the will ain't here, I'm going to conclude us in a prayer. Alright, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, have mercy on us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Until next time, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.